So for the agenda today, it's mainly going to be the collaboration features. This includes revision management, creating revisions in EPLAN, project management, multi-user access. So this is allowing two or more users to access a single project at the same time. Rights management for managing logons. Project options for turning certain pages or objects on and off. Translations. This is used for handling multiple languages in a project. And as a bonus, we're also going to be including the PLC Bus Extension. Then after we've gone over all of this, we'll have the end of session Q&A. So for the revision management, this is how we create and manage revisions in EPLAN, which can be found under File. And the way revisions work is there's two types of revisions in EPLAN. There's the project revisions and page revisions. And you create a project revision and then you have specific page revisions. So for example, if you look at the second bullet point, my revision 1 is my project revision, and then I have draft issued for construction markup. Those will be my page revisions. And of course, you can always delete it, or you can always edit and delete them. If it's not clear, I'll go over this, how this works in the demo. The other type of revision control is through a reference project. So EPLAN allows us to generate reference projects. And once you've generated a reference project, you can make changes to it. And then you can do a comparison. And when you do the comparison, it will make a list as well as graphical markers showing you the differences between your current project versus the reference project. Project management. What this is this is an overview of all the projects that you have or that you've opened previously in the past. So this is an ideal for managing multiple projects at once. Stuff like checking job numbers, checking client details. You can also use this to backup, edit, backup, compress projects as well. And then multi-user access. So this feature allows users to work on a project at the same time. And there's a few ways of doing this. Either users can work on the whole project at once and access the same page simultaneously, or you can allow different users to work on their own section at the same time, or you can create sub-projects and assign a user a certain sub-project and then import it back into the main project. So the rights management. What this is this allows you to create your own sort of login system for when you access EPLAN. And here you can manage which user accounts can access EPLAN. You can manage stuff like passwords and user rights. So what you can do is, once you've created your user, you can assign specific permissions, who gets to access what, or who will be restricted from what. This is really good for companies where you have a lot of sensitive data and you need that security. Next feature is the webinar demo. The project options. So project options, this is used for toggling pages on and off, or toggling pages, devices, objects on and off. And you can create your own option, assign different pages, different objects to the option, and then you can turn off, quote unquote, those set pages. And anything that is turned off, it will not appear in your project. It'll be hidden from your project, and it will not be picked up in any reports or any Excel exports that you do. And then translations. So in EPLAN, you have a translation feature, and this allows you to display multiple languages on a page. And the way this works is you have a dictionary, which is stored in a database file, and the dictionary will contain certain words, sentences, phrases, and then you make sure you fill in the dictionary with the English word and then the translation. And then once you've set up your dictionary, you can then run the translate function across the entire project. And wherever EPLAN sees the keywords or the sentences as defined in your dictionary, it will automatically populate, the translation on the page. So it's super good, makes it super fast. It avoids having a design engineer manually typing in the translation on each device on each page. Just gives you a way to save some time. And now we'll do a live demo. So all of those features that you saw in the previous slides, I'll show you how they work. Okay. So this here is my demo project. And the first exercise I want to do is generate a revision. So the revision that I want to generate, I want to be able to also display it here on my plot frame. So at the moment it's empty because I've got no revision. So to generate the revision, what you're going to do, I'll just zoom out a bit. I'm going to go to File, and it's saved under this revision control tab. And we're going to start with the change tracking revision, tracking the changes, and then we'll do property comparison afterwards. So once you're on this tab, first things first, you're going to go generate a revision. This will be, if I click, now we're going to be generating our project revision. So I'm going to go give it a name. I'm going to call it A, give it a comment. This can be my draft. You can see it already picks up the user and the date, so I don't have to type it in. And then I go OK. So what I just did is I inserted a project revision. And because of the way I set this up, my project revision is going to be shown on all pages. So now once I've done my draft, let's say the Sparky comes back to me a week later. He requests some changes. He wants to do a markup. So any change I decide to do, like let's keep it simple. I want to move the motor circuit protection up a bit and do it. You can see any change is now going to be highlighted in green. You can see the green box as well as a watermark draft. And then what I can do, let's say I've finished my markups. I've done all the changes I need to. To finalize those changes, I will go to File, back to Revision Control. This time, I want to go Complete Pages. And now this is where I generate my page revision, not my project revision, and then you'll see the difference. So if I go B, this can be my markup. I can give a reason for a change. Move. CV up, something simple. If I go OK, and you can see the draft text disappears. And if I go to the plot frame, you can see this page has revision B. I've done my markup on this page, but if I go to a different page, all the other pages will not have revision B. And the reason why they won't is because I haven't made any changes to those pages. And if I go back to here, another feature that's also quite useful that I would choose to do is you can modify how this looks. So let's say I don't want to have this be like a dashed line. I would like to show it as a cloud. What I can do is if I go to the settings, if I go to my user settings, management, and I say project settings, no mistake. If I go to revision change tracking, you can see the watermark text. I'd rather just have it say revision instead of drafts. And then if I go to the graphical representation, you can see this is the format of anything that's been changed. So anything that's changed is going to look like this. If I've added something in, I would have to do it separate. You can do this all separately. But I'll stick with changed for now. So I would like to go, instead of a rectangle, I can make it a cloud. And if I want, I could change the color, or I can change the line type. I think I'll just leave it for now. If we go apply, you can see I've made that clouded. So you can change how your markers look. If you don't want to see your marker at all, what you can do is you can go to View, and then up here, you'll see the button for revision markers. You click on it, you won't see them on your page. I mean, they'll still be there in the background, but you can hide them and they won't be seen. Next thing I'm going to talk about is if I go to File, Revision Control, if you've made a mistake on your revisions, like let's say instead of it being the markup, this was just something else, for example, you can always go edit revision data. And you can see here, these are all the revisions that I have in my project. Starting off at A at the top, and then B, it even tells me which page I have the change on. And I can see I can change anything here if I want to. And yeah. And lastly, we can talk about, once you're happy, you can even delete your revisions. Or before you delete them, you have the option of, if I go to revision control, to complete a project. So what complete does is once I've completed, I can add another revision here. Just go see final. Go OK. My project's now complete, and if I try and double click, I can't make any changes. So it's a completed project. No changes are able to be made. And so the other thing I missed is, if next to your project name on the very left, you can see this symbol here. So this symbol simply means you're using revision control. But anyway, to uncomplete my project, I can go File, Revision Control, Write Protection, and then I can remove the protection so I can edit the project again. So I'll do that. Yeah. Now, I can make changes here. And also, it now says revision instead of complete. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my revisions from the page, from the project. To do that, I'm going to go File, Revision Control. And then down here, I can delete my revisions. So these two tick boxes are quite important. If I only tick the first one, I'm simply removing the markers, nothing else. So let me show you how that works. If I go OK, you can see the markers are gone, but the revisions still remain. If I go File, this time if I do both of these, and if I remove the data as well, if I go OK, you can see not just the markers, but everything gets deleted as well. So that's how you do revision control through tracking changes. Now I'm going to go over the other one, the property comparison. So let's say I'm happy with this. This is going to be my reference project. So I'm going to go File, Revision Control. This time I'm going to be in this Property Comparison tab. And I'm going to go Generate Reference Project. You can see I can give it a name. This can be Revision 1. But I'm happy with this. I'm going to go OK. And now I'm free to make some changes. So let's say, change of, let's say the client doesn't want this DOL here. It's not going to be used anymore. So if I delete it, if I delete this, and let's move something else, maybe, actually, no, I'll move this across a little bit as well. Yep, I've made my changes. Now I want to compare it with the original reference project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go File, Revision Control, this tab here. And now this time I can choose to compare the two to see the changes. So this is the project I'm comparing it with, and I'm just going to check these create deletion markers. Yep. Everything else is fine. It's just this one on a tick to show me what gets deleted. We go OK. It's looking for the differences between the two. And we'll just wait a bit. Yeah, that's fine. So you can see lots of stuff here was changed. You can see rubbish bin icons. So that rubbish bin means something was deleted. Okay, so they are overlapping because I did move some stuff. So if I just drag this around, I just expand this, you can see I have EPLAN generated a list of everything that was changed. So I can see page 200, the page I'm working on was changed. I can see all of these connection definition points, everything that was changed, that was moved, everything that was deleted, cables. That's, if you want a more detailed list for all the changes. But yep, I'm happy with that. See my changes, nothing else. So yeah, that's the second method of doing revisions. If I just go back, I'm just going to delete my revisions, and then we can move on. Yep. And then we'll move on to the next topic. Okay, so the next topic is the project management. So we go File, and it's this one here above revision control. And then all this is, so what this is basically, this is all of the projects that I have saved in my projects folder. So at the moment, this is on my C drive, but it could be, on a server somewhere or SharePoint. And whatever I click here, whichever project I choose to select, like let's say the webinar demo, on the right, I have all the properties for the project. So I can see names, descriptions, job numbers. If there's anything I'm not happy with, like for example, let's say the job number, I need to change that. I can, down here, I can go to edit. And now I can modify. So let's say I want this to be PO 3456, something like that. I can save it. And it's not just editing these properties fields here. If you go to organize, so you can open the project if it's not already opened in EPLAN. You can rename it, make copies. You can compress projects. So compressing is quite good to remove useless data that you don't need. You can even go automated processing. So if I show you what it is, I can run certain specified actions, like, for example, exporting a parts list onto the server if I want to, as well as doing everything here. You also have more advanced stuff, like you can edit which directory is on, move the project file itself to another directory if you want. You can verify projects, check for errors. Use this to create a basic project template. Yeah. So overall, it's like a good overview for managing multiple projects at once. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this feature. Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic, the multi-user management. So for the multi-user management, it is under the collaboration. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to activate selected working sections. I could tick this, and then that means everyone has access, every user can access the entire project all at once, but I'm not interested in doing that. So once I've activated the working sections, I need to define them. So now go to define, and I choose this define as project administrator. So right now I've decided that I'm going to be working on the power section, and my colleague Craig is going to be working on the PLC section. If I go OK with this, you can see I now only have 3 pages. And the reason why I have 3 pages is because I've decided I'm only working on this power section. If I want to work on the whole project at once, I can go back to File, Collaboration, and I can tick Entire Project. And as soon as I do that, now I see every section. So hypothetically, me and Craig could both be working on this PLC section. He could be working on this page. I can then go to a different page, come back, and I would see some changes. EPLAN doesn't recommend you do this because in the case of, something might crash, in case your EPLAN might crash or something could get corrupted, which is why they recommend working in different sections. So that's one way of multi-user. The other way is if I just turn this off, is you can separate your project into different sub-projects. So the way this works is, let's see, if I go to this, okay. So yep, these are my 2 sections, the PLC and power, and I can choose to separate them out. So let's say if I want to have the PLC section, separated, I'm going to click on PLC. Down here, I can go File Off. And it's going to generate a sub-project. Okay, so it's just telling us don't change the project name or anything like that. That's fine. So now you'll notice is that I have this locked icon meaning I can't make any changes to this section. If I try to say move this, it won't let me. And then so while I'm working on, let's say, the power, Craig, for example, he is going to be working on this sub-project that I've generated. He'll have access to all of these PLC drawings. He can make whatever changes he wants or whatever changes he needs to make. As soon as he tells me he's finished, let's say if I'm just going to move this up as an example. I move this up. Once the changes have been made, I'm going to simply import the sub-project back into the main project. So we'll do that now. Go back to the sub-projects. And if you're wondering which sub-project has been generated, which one hasn't, if you see this black cell here, it means the sub-project has already been filed off. If I hover over this one, it's been stored. So I'm going to store this PLC. And by storing it, I'm bringing it back. Yep, you can see I've brought it back now. If I go to this section, yep, the changes have also been imported back into the main project. So yeah, that's how we do handle multiple users working on a project at a time. Okay, the next topic we can talk about is the rights management. So to access the rights management, it is a bit hidden, but you would go to extras and then down here, right next to it, and then you click this. Okay, so let me just separate everything out first. So if you click on users here, this will give you a list of all the user accounts assigned either locally to this computer, or you can show like a network or the users in the network. So at the moment I have this set up to just be like a local list of users, not the whole network. But anyway, here you can do stuff like change passwords. You can even change names or give a description. Once you have your user account set up, or once you've created like an empty user, you then need to assign certain permissions to the user. So for example, let's say I want to assign permissions to Philip, for example. I will then click on Philip in the list, in the navigator. And then you can see I have certain groups here. So the user account Philip is assigned as an administrator. To see which permissions the administrator has, I would then click on administrator here, the administrator group. And if I do a scroll down, you can see administrator pretty much has access to everything. Yep, everything's ticked. And I can see which users are assigned. You also have other groups. So for example, if I go to guest, you can see the guest users have pretty much nothing or very little. They've got some small stuff here and there. They can print, project management. And then these other two groups, there would be somewhere in the middle. So schematic editor, they can't touch the parts database, but they can, draw schematics on the page. And they can't touch settings. See, if I go to here, you can see a list of all the users. Again, it's ideal for companies where you need that level of security. Like let's say maybe you have an intern who you want to work on EPLAN. Maybe you don't want to give them access to say stuff like your company settings, for example. Anyway, to turn on the login prompt, if you go to operating mode, you can see I have sign in here. So you can do without rights management and ignore this if you don't want this. So by default, it's without, or you can have sign in. So I'll show you what this looks like. I'm just going to restart my EPLAN so you can see the login prompt. And if I just open my 2026, yep, you can see it brings this up. It's now forcing me to sign into EPLAN if I want to access it. So I'll still keep my user accounts. Of course, you can set your own password or choose not to have any. Choice is yours. Okay, yeah, I've logged in. So yeah, that's how rights management works in a nutshell. Next topic I want to cover is the project options. So let's say this is a pretty generic project. And some of my generic projects or projects that will be similar to this, half of them will have a VSD, the other half won't. So what I want to do is I want to be able to turn this VSD on and off. That's my goal. And to do that, I will use project options. To find project options, we need to open the navigator first. And that can be found under devices. And then you'll see this tab here. So if I open up navigator, yep, so I'll just delete this and we'll start from scratch. So the moment I have no option whatsoever. So to create one for turning the VSD on and off, you need to right click, go new, and you want this one in the middle, project option. And you'll see this popping up. So I'll type in the VSD. Turn the VSD. The top option here, project options group, you can ignore that. That's pretty much if you want to say group certain project options together. But I only have one in this case, so I don't need it. So I can go OK. And you can see I've got my option here. If I expand it, there's nothing there. So now I need to assign this page to this option. And the way you assign objects to this option is you select the page here. You right click and you go new section. So my options group is going to be empty. I want my section to be under VSD, so that's correct. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to call this page, or maybe VSD page. Same thing. I go OK. And now if I expand this, you can see I have the VSD page, as well as it also shows you which placeholders you have. So these three placeholders just came from the data portal. That's why they're there. However, I don't want to just turn the page on and off, because if I do that, I'm not taking into account the connection, the power connection going to this page. So if I follow the interruption points, the power for the VSD is coming from this section. So if there is no VSD, this feed block here should also not be there as well. So what I'm going to do is I need to assign this as a section to here as well. So I'm going to select this and then go right click, new section. This, I'm going to be calling this power feed and say power VSD. And then, yeah, now you can see I have these two here. So now I want to test it to see if it works. So what I'm going to do to turn my VSD off, I'm going to right click on VSD. And this is what you want. You want to click on toggle. If it's ticked, it's visible. If it's not ticked, it's hidden. So if I click on this, it's now gone. The page is gone as well as this. And as I've mentioned before, it doesn't just hide it from the page. If I go to my parts list, for example, you can see I've got this 210 here, 210 VSD, as well as the isolator below it, the circuit breaker above it. If I update this report, you can see it's now gone. So it also turns it off in the report. And just a few more notes. The toggle, you can also assign Pro Panel or Pro Panel components to it. So anything on the 3D layout space can be assigned as a section. And you can also make those sections transparent instead of turning them off. So that's what this transparent's for. I'm just going to turn these back on. And if I update the parts list, if you find yourself in a situation where you've forgotten, what these sections do, you can find out by using the graphical preview. So if I go to home, I go graphical preview, you can see it tells me that this VSD is made up of this page and then this power bus. If I click on here, I click, just as to help you remember. So yeah, that's the that's how project options works. Next, I want to talk about the translation feature. So the translations can be found under tools. And they're going to be bunched up, well, because of my resolution, but they'll be in this section here. And what you need to do before you're able to do the translation features is that you need to assign a language. You can either go File, Settings, and then find the languages under User, or you can take a shortcut and go Settings down here, and it will take you to and it's pretty much the same place. Let me just do that again. Oh, yeah, there we go. So these are my translation settings. At the top, these are the languages that I have assigned to me right here. If I want to add another language, I can go New, and there's a lot of them over here you can choose from. Down here, you can see these are the languages that I've chosen to display. So the moment, and keep in mind the order here is important. So the moment I'm deciding to have English displayed on top, although you can do it the other way around. You can even choose to have only English displayed, then hide other languages if you want. Here you can also choose which property fields you want to translate. So the moment I'm translating function texts, engraving texts, mounting site, and more. You can also choose to translate reports as well. So when you do your parts list, your cable schedules, you can choose to have them be translated as well. And in dictionary, this is just the file. This is just the database file where your dictionary is stored in. But yeah, that's how these settings work. Anyway, I'm gonna show you how the dictionary works. So if I select my project, and then this one here, you can see edit dictionary. So I'll go through each tab. So you don't need to install SQL to edit your DB file, database file. You can do it through here. If I go to edit words, you can see here is a list of all my words in my dictionary. So this isn't a lot, it's just like a little demo. On the right is telling you the English translation and then your other language. You can edit these here. You can even go plus and add a new word to the dictionary if you want. You can delete an entry. That's what this edit words tab is for. Next is the do not translate. Sometimes, I've had this before from experience, EPLAN will translate certain things that shouldn't be. Like for example, I've had it before where it might translate maybe the 24 volts. We don't need a translation for that. It should be pretty obvious. So it's just like a blacklist of what not to translate. The next tab is autocorrect. So where it purposely looks for a specified incorrect word and replaces it with something else. So I don't have anything there. But anyway, once your dictionary is set up, you can then use it on your project. So if I go to my power distribution page, let's say I've got some words here like power supply, supplied by client that needs translating. And the way to use the translation feature is to select your page or the project. And then you want to click this button here, translate. So if I click on this, if I zoom in, you can see, look at that, it translated everything. And it put the translation below the English text. Super helpful feature, saves you from having to type this out manually, one by one. So let's say you're in a scenario, like for example, this MCB hasn't been translated. And the reason why the MCB hasn't been translated is because it's under technical not function. So if I go to the properties, you can go type in MCB here and then go translate. And then you can see it brings up the translation here. I can then go OK. And then you can see it's got the translation as well. If, for example, like in this case, you wanted to not have the English translation, or only need one, I don't want to double up, I can then choose to display in one language only. And to do that, you can go to display. Under function text, I just drag this out so you can read. You see what it says language, all displayed vertically? I can choose, let's say this one here. Go OK. And I only have one language displayed. I don't have any, double ups. So yeah. And then just a few more features to get through. You can export missing word lists. So anything in your, so what this is that EPLAN will export to a text file, all XML. Any text fields that are missing. So stuff like that. You can choose, or you can choose a text file, which I'm not going to do, but you can. You can also do a test input. So you can type in something like here. So for example, do I have MCCB? If I translate, no, I don't. It's missing. No, I don't want to do that. And then lastly, once you're done with the translations, or if you don't want to see them anymore, you can select the project and go remove. And now I want to remove this language from the project. And you can see my translations are all gone now. They've been removed. So yeah, that's how translations works. So now what I want to do to finish off, I want to talk about the PLC Bus Extension. So there's some nice features in the PLC Bus Extension, so I'll go over them one by one. The first one I want to talk about is the schematic generator. And the way this works is pretty simple. If you go to your device navigator, so you can see here under my device navigator, what I did is I right-clicked and I went new device, and then I chose my PLC card, etc. I called it A1, just something simple. So my PLC, so I just made it a simple .io input card. Now, instead of dragging this onto the page, which you can definitely do, instead, I'm going to go to the search bar, and I'm going to type in gen. And then what I'm looking for is this feature, this button here, generate schematic. Now be careful, because this button is not available in the EPLAN ribbon by default. It's sort of hidden unless you manually put it there yourself. So it is a hidden feature. But if I click on this, so to explain what's happening here, and you're going to see this. So to explain what's happening is my PLC box is coming from this macro here, this IBA macro. And I'm going to place it on, let's just keep it simple, 100, page 100. Now, each of these PLC points, which are defined in the parts database, will need its own macro file. I mean, I can just leave it empty and just not have a macro there, but if I do want a macro, I can go open up the folder, and I've created this little macro here, DI feedback. So, and I'm going to say all of these PLC points have this DI feedback. So you can see I can copy and paste it. And when I did that, 2 more columns popped up. So so what these columns are is that these are variables that I've created in the placeholder. So I've got my circuit breaker device tag here, and I've got my contactor device tag. And then I can, fill these in. So let's keep it simple, Q1, Q2, Q3. And I'll do the same for the contactor, just make it K1. Yep, so that's how this is. Of course, if you do want to go more complex, you absolutely can. If you see here, I can export this whole thing, make some changes to it, copy it, open it up in Excel, import it back. If you have like 5 or 6 different variables. But for now, I can just leave as is. And then to generate, you go OK. And yep, as I've said before, to save your data, you can save it in an XML format or an Excel format to import again. But I don't want to save it. And if I go to pages, you can see I've got page 100 here. And look at that. It generated this PLC card, the A1, as well as my DI feedback. And it even populated all of these circuit breaker, these auxiliary contacts. If I just go into one of these placeholders, you can see it even filled these in. So yeah, that's how the generate schematic works. The other thing I wanted to talk about that you have with the other thing that you have with the PLC Bus Extension is with the reports. So when you generate your PLC report, when you generate a report, you also have more options. You have these three options here. You can generate a PLC address overview, or like a card overview of all the cards, or a diagram if you want a bit more graphical. All of these are now available, which previously they weren't. And the other thing I want to show that you have access to is importing PLCs or exporting PLCs to other software. So if I go to File, if I go to Exports, you can see down here you have a PLC section. So you can export PLC data file to automation. So down here, format of export file, you have different software packages that you can use. Over here, PLC configuration program here as well. You can export to Siemens, to Schneider, to ABB, stuff like that. And as well as exporting, you can also do import as well. So we go to File. If we go to Import, I can also import an assignment list, import PLC data. Same thing. I can look at these files over here, automation ML, and more. So yeah, that's the PLC bus extension in a nutshell.